All right, welcome to creating your page 7 and 8 of your interactive notebook. Today we're going to be using the comparing fractions sheets. So it should be, since we've been doing this in order, the next two sheets in your packet. And so those would be this sheet that looks like this. It says comparing fractions at the top. And then the sheet directly after that, that says compare each set of fractions. All right. So the first thing I would like for you to do is to take the sheet of paper that says comparing fractions with 4NF-2 or dot 2 and cut that out. Go ahead and cut around the sheet so that it can fit inside your journal. Once you've cut that out, it's going to go on your piece of paper, and you're going to take your glue stick and you are going to glue the back. Also up at the top, you should go ahead and write number 7. At any point, if you need to pause, like if I cut out faster than you, cut the piece of paper out faster than you, then just pause the film and do whatever needs to be done. So you're going to glue stick and then place that directly on your notebook. All right, now looking at the top, they give a strategy of what we are going to be doing. All right, and this is a 4th grade strategy that you should have learned last year, but it could have happened that we were in the middle of our quarantine, and I'm sure math instruction was not the best in March. So we're going to review these kind of things so that you make sure you understand how to do them, and it makes it easier to add and subtract fractions. So this states, I can compare two fractions with different numerators and different denominators by creating common numerators or denominators, or by comparing to a benchmark fraction. All right, so there are 3 strategies we're going to learn today. Ultimately, you'll probably use the find the common denominators. Strategy 2 is a good mental math strategy, and strategy 1 is good to make you see what it is, but it's actually not something you're going to use for life. So using a fraction model, we're going to compare 1/4 to 2/3. Okay, so we're going to take this first bar and we're going to divide it into equal fourths, and we're going to shade 1 bar because it's 1 out of 4. All right, now to divide this into 4 equal parts, I'm going to start off by dividing it into 2 equal parts. And I'm kind of sideways on this, so that's about center. And then because now I have 2 equal parts, I can divide each of those into 2 equal parts. And now I have 1, 2, 3, 4 relatively equal parts. And then from there, we are supposed to shade 1 bar. All right, so now you should shade 1 bar. If you have a pencil, you can just shade it in with pencils. If you want to go get your markers, you can shade it in with markers. The next one, we're going to do 2/3. We're going to divide the bar into equal thirds, and then we're going to shade 2 of those. So that's about equal. The first one looks a little bigger, but that's okay for these purposes. And now we're going to shade 2 of those. We're going to shade one here. And we're going to shade one here. And now we're going to compare the two. All right. Which one of these is larger? 2/3 is larger than 1/4. All right. So 2/3 is larger than 1/4. So now moving down to the next strategy, compare to a benchmark like 1/2. So if you just look at this, we have a number line, and we have a number line between 0 and 1, and the things that fall between 0 and 1 are fractions or decimals. Fractions and decimals are the exact same thing. 1/4 is the same thing as 0.25. They're just different ways to show those numbers. So we're going to look at, and we're going to think about 1/4, and our benchmark is a 1/2. All right, so 1/2 is directly in the middle of 1 and 0, and we're going to place 1/4 on the number line. And when we place 1/4 on the number line, we see that it is less than 1/2. When we place 2/3 on the number line over here, we see that 2/3 is more than 1/2. So in our minds, we can use mental math, and we can realize that 2/3 is greater than 1/4. All right, just like up here, it showed us that 2/3 was greater than 1/4. Here in our mind, we're thinking about a number line, and then we are using that. This strategy, we would never write this strategy out and do this strategy. This is something you would use in your head. So you would visualize a number line, and then you would go from there. All right, and then the third way, which is the way you're going to do this from this point forward, is you're going to find a common denominator. All right, so to compare 1/4 and 1/3, you're going to find a common denominator by finding equivalent fractions with the same denominator and then compare. So in order to find a equivalent fraction for 1/4 and 1/3, we need to think about what numbers these both go into. So we can take 4 and we can take 3, and we can multiply 4 times 3 and get 12. And when we multiply 4 times 3 to get 12, we can use this as a common denominator, because 4 goes into 12 3 times, and 3 goes into 12 4 times. So we're going to go down, and we are going to write 1/4, and then they are multiplying it times 3/3. 3/3 is the same thing as 1. So we're really not changing how much 1/4 is worth. We're just making it look different. So when we multiply 3 times 1, we get 3, and 4 times 3, we get 12. So we have 3/12. 3/12 and 1/4 are equivalent. They are the exact same size. 1/4 of a dollar is a quarter. 3/12 of a dollar is a quarter. All right. If I simplified 3/4, I would get 1/4. So we have 3/12. I'm going to go ahead and make that yellow. And then we're going to take 2/3, and we're going to multiply it by 4/4. 4/4, when we reduce that, equals 1. So we're not changing, once again, we're not changing the size of 2/3. We're just changing how it looks. So when I multiply 2 times 4, we get 8, and 3 times 4 is 12. So we're left with 8/12. So now we're going to compare 8/12 to 3/12. And when we do that, when we have a common denominator at the bottom, we are just looking at the numerator. So which numerator is larger? The 8 is larger. So that means that 3/12 is larger than, 2/3 is larger than 1/4. So 8/12 is greater than 3/12. All right, so this is greater than, I'll write these over here just so we remember. We have greater than, go ahead and write these down so that if you need them. We have less than, and then we might have some that are equal. All right. Now, that's page 7. This will be what you use to go back and practice. We're going to turn the page to page 8. And you are going to copy you're going to cut out the next sheet. And on this page, we're going to practice. All right, so this page is going to go on this sheet, so I'm going to glue it in. And then on this sheet, what you're going to do is I'm going to give you the problem. You're going to pause the video. You're going to solve the problem, and then you're going to come back to check it. All right, the first problem we're going to work is 2/5 with a circle. So you're either going to put a greater than, a less than, or an equal sign in this circle. 5/8. So we're comparing each set of fractions. 2/5 compared to 5/8. Which one is larger? All right. So if you will go ahead and pause your video and then solve that problem. All right, welcome back. 2/5 and 5/8. We are going to look at, first of all, our denominators. All right, so we have a 5 and we have an 8. They are not equal, so these fractions are currently not equivalent. All right, so in our minds, we're either using the benchmark strategy, or we are finding an equivalent fraction, or we're drawing out the pictures. Okay, so if I was going to use the find the common denominator, then I'm going to look at 5 and 8, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to multiply those two together, 5 and 8, to get a common denominator. So 5 times 8 is 40. And then I have to think, how many times does 5 go into 40, which is 8. So I'm going to multiply my numerator by 8, because I've already multiplied my denominator by 8. So 8 times 2 is 16. So I have 16 40ths. And then we're going to multiply the numerator of 5/8 by 5, because 8 times 5 is 40, and 5 times 5 is 25. So now we have 16 40ths and 25 40ths. And in this instance, 25 is greater than 16. So you should have 2/5 is less than 5/8. And if you remember back to when you were in first grade, your kindergarten teacher or your first grade teacher made a little crocodile with teeth to help you remember that it goes towards the bigger one. They're going to eat the bigger one. All right. So if that helps you remember, then use that strategy. All right. Let's go on to the next one, 2/3 and 4/6. So if you would look at this, 2/3 and 4/6, pause your video and compare those two. All right, welcome back. This one's a little easier because we know right away that 3 goes into 6. So we don't have to do anything to both fractions. We're just going to do something to one. 3 times 2 is 6. So I'm going to multiply the top by 2, I'm sorry. And I end up with 4. So I have 4/6. So 4/6 compared to 4/6. All right, they are equivalent. You may have just noticed that 4/6 reduces to 2/3, and you may have ended up without having to use a common denominator because you just realized that it was a simplified version of the other. All right. Oops. Sorry about that. Next, I'd like for you to do 5/8 and 3/4. 5/8 and 3/4. Go ahead and pause your video and solve that problem. All right, welcome back. This is a very similar one in terms of we have 4 and 8. They go into each other very easily, so we only have to worry about one side, one fraction. So 4 times 2 is 8, and 3 times 2 is 6. So we have 6/8 and 5/8. And so our 6/8 is larger. So 3/4 is larger than 5/8. Move on to 3/10. We have 3/10 and we have 2/3. Go ahead, pause your video, and solve that problem. All right, welcome back. We know that 10 times 3 is 30. So I'm going to write a 30 down here, and then I'm going to multiply the 3/10 by 3/3, which means we have 9/30. And then I'm going to multiply 2/3 by 10/10, which is the same thing as 1. So we're not really changing the size. And 2 times 10 is 20. So we have 9/30 and we have 20/30. So 2/3 is larger than 3/10. All right. This might be one, this would have been one you could probably benchmark very easily as a strategy. All right. Our next problem is going to be 3/5 and 4/8. You'll go ahead and pause your video to solve that problem. All right, welcome back. We know that 5 and 8, when we multiply those two, they end up, we get an answer of 40. So our common denominator is going to be 40. And then I'm going to multiply 3/5 by 8/8. So I should end up with 24/40. If I reduce 24/40, I should get 3/5. And then I'm going to multiply 4/8 by 5/5. And that ends up being 20/40. 4/8 is actually reduces to 1/2. So here you could benchmark this one very easily also if you're doing this in your head. So 24/40 compared to 20/40. 24/40 is greater. So 3/5 is greater than 4/8. Or 3/5 is greater than 1/2. And then the last one is 1/2 and 4/8. All right. As we've worked through this, if you're looking and you're paying attention to the numbers and what you could do when you reduce 1/4 4 is 1/2 of 8. So this reduces. So if I divided this by 2/2, then 4 divided by 2 would be 2, and 8 divided by 2, I'm not 2/2, 4/2, sorry. 4 divided by 4 is 1, and 8 divided by 4 is 2, and we end up with 1/2. So 1/2 equals 1/2. Sorry about that there. So we divided by 4/4, not 2/2, because we would have had to reduce again. All right. All right, perfect. If check your assignments to make sure you do not have another assignment to go with yours after this particular interactive notebook page. And I will see you tomorrow. Thanks. Bye-bye.